At this time, if anyone has a cell phone or anything else that makes noise, if you'd be so kind, just to make sure that's in silent or vibrate, if you will, please. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen who are with us, and all of you who are joining us virtually. We were telling Pat how many people were starting to come on, and even though she had a mask on, the eyes don't lie. I saw that smile come up. Oh, there it is again. She knows that you're here, and all the people here do realize that there are so many people who, for various reasons, couldn't make it tonight, but they know you're here and they appreciate your love and support. And I would ask that if you are watching us virtually, that you just kind of put everything else aside and just make believe you were here in our chapel, and try to become one with the people who are here as we celebrate the wonderful life that is Bob. Many of you have been here several times, and you know that I begin every funeral that I'm privileged and honored to be a part of with a good afternoon, a good evening, or good whatever. Because if we don't stop and realize that it's good and great that we gather together during the awesome times of life, as well as during the times that really try who we are as people, then all the preparations that Pat and the kids made to make this really a celebration of Bob's life given by that good and loving Creator, just kind of a exercise that we go through when someone dies and it doesn't really mean that much. So it really is good that we've had so many people come through tonight to pay their respects and share their stories, and they've all revolved around Bob's gregarious, huge smile, his laughter, and his kind heart. We're going to do a couple things tonight. I am going to meditate on just a few things, and we are honored as you see the television off to my right, your left, and for those of you watching, she will become live in a few moments. That sounds weird from a funeral director. She'll become live. She will be joining us virtually at her podium over there, but Bob's sister, Reverend Diane Bennekamper, who is up north, is going to bring with us the main message tonight, as well as some stories of her brother from a time, well, frankly, before any of us knew him. So she will join us in a few moments. Also tonight, we are going to have a time where I know a few of you had a special thought, a way that Bob touched your heart in that tender way. And we're going to give you a chance to come forward if you feel comfortable. If you don't, that's okay as well. But if you do feel comfortable, just know that that option will be afforded to you a little bit later on. Obviously, just due to constraints, we ask you to keep it just to 1 or 2 minutes. And if you don't have anything written, that's okay as well. These hallowed walls, you can't say anything wrong as long as you come from your heart. That's all that matters. That's all we ask of you. So I thought I would open us up with a word of prayer, and then introduce Bob's sister a little more formally. But I wanted to kind of set the tone. And as I was thinking about what would Bob want said up here tonight, well, first it would be something about making sure we keep the oceans and the beaches clean and safe. You're all, the heads are all nodding up and down. We know that, and we're going to hear a little bit about that in a few moments. But I wanted to pull a quote by Franklin Roosevelt that really just kind of struck me. To reach a port, we must set sail. Sail, not tie an anchor. Sail, not drift. Bob knew the importance of living. He knew the importance of doing the right thing. He knew the importance that life is what you make of it. So it's in that spirit that I ask you, if you're with somebody that you came with and you'd like to join their hands, COVID safe, of course, let's do that and bow our heads in prayer. Spirit of life and death, thou who art as present to us in our suffering as in our well-being, abide with us now in this permeable time between the dusk and the dark. Soothe the secret pains we carry. Bless us with the courage to move towards our grief, to sail towards our grief and not away from it. When all is hidden, when we find ourselves moving among the shadows, when we do not know the way, Heavenly Father, quiet our hearts and still our restlessness. Help us to embrace the unknown, to hold the mystery and to let ourselves be held by it. For thou art the great hiddenness, and we know that our breath is not so close to us as thy presence is. Abide with us now, O Spirit of compassion, as the power of healing, the assurance of peace, and the love that will not let us go. Amen. I wanted to introduce Bob's cherished sister with a word of scripture. But it's also a song that Bob kind of grew up with by the Byrds. I think Bob might like the Byrds version a little more, but we're going to read the scripture version because that's important too. And as I was speaking with his sister, talking about what this would look at, and we were just kind of bouncing some ideas off because we really wanted to make this about Bob and truly celebrating his life. I told her this is what I was thinking, and that's perfect. It's a lead into right to where she was going to go, and we didn't even know it. So you've heard these words before, I have no doubt. And the family who knows me knows I never do anything the same. I don't like cookie cutter. You've heard this probably at every funeral or 90% of the funerals you go to. But that means it's good, right? That means it has some oomph to it. And for Bob, especially, I think it does, because nobody thought we'd be here right now. From Ecclesiastes 3. To everything there's a season, and a time to every purpose under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. My friends, tonight, you will shed tears like you've been. But when you walk out of that door tonight, and when all of you go back to the new life, the new norm, not without Bob in it, because Bob is very much in it. That's issue number one I take. If you walk out of here thinking it's a new world without Bob in it, you're not thinking correctly. Because Bob's here. Bob's in that wind we heard about that pushes the ship forward. The vessel. Got to be careful with my terminology tonight. I see another smile coming from under that mask. Your hearts may not feel like dancing right now. Let Bob in. Let your faith guide you. And I promise you, you will dance again with Bob dancing right beside you. With that, I would like to turn it over to Bob's sister, Reverend Diane Bennekamper.
Good evening. I'm really glad that I'm able to be with you, even as far away as I am in Maine. I'm certainly with you in spirit, if not in physical presence. Birth is a beginning, death is a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth and age, from innocence to awareness, from ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom. Until we look backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not in some high place along the way, but in having made the journey. Stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Earth is a beginning, death is our destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage. Dear family and friends, you know why we're here. We're gathered here to remember and give thanks for the journey of Robert Hughes Bennekamper, Bob, my brother, to share this bittersweet time together, because Bob crossed the path of our life's journey, and it is right to celebrate the ways in which he touched each of us. And I get to remember a lot, since I am one of 4 living people who have known Bob the longest. He was all of 3.5 years old when I was born, and we happen to have a few older cousins who are still among us, and I hope are watching in cyberspace. As many of you know, we grew up in the thriving metropolis of Rahway, New Jersey, 433 West Inman Avenue to be exact. Now, Rahway may not seem like a big deal to most of you, but our mother's family settled there before the Revolutionary War. And Mom wanted to be darn sure that we knew about New Jersey and Rahway history. Our high school produced some famous people. Milton Friedman, an internationally known economist, and Carl Sagan. Remember watching Cosmos on TV, where we all learned about the stars and the planets? Carl Sagan went to our high school. There are famous people from Rahway, and we are not among them. Thank you. And when our cousin Dick, who lived around the corner on Jefferson Avenue, went to Princeton pre-med and then to Harvard Medical School, Bob and I looked at each other and said, well, we can't do that. I guess we'll just have to be ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. My brother Bob was a regular guy, and most of us are regular people. The people who, by our pretty ordinary lives, are the ones who make this world work. And it is in the living of our ordinary lives that we find meaning and purpose. Bob's love of being on and around the water began at an early age. When we were in elementary school, our grandparents on a summer day would take us down to the Manasquan Inlet to fish. Now, Bob had one lure that he really liked, and he had some success with it even. And he loaned it to me one day, and I can still see the cast, the lure going out toward the middle of the inlet, farther than I'd ever seen it go before. Unfortunately, it had slipped off the fish line and was never seen again. It was one of those times when Bob had to learn about loss, and fortunately for me, forgiveness. After eating a picnic lunch that Grandma had packed, well, then we'd go off to the Asbury Park boardwalk and the rides. And when we were really young, Bob especially liked what we called the putt-putt boats. Grandma and Grandpa would also take us crabbing. In those days, you could rent a rowboat and a line and the bait and the net, and out we four would go into the Barnegat Bay to catch crabs. We were both well into our teens when we learned that neither of our grandparents could swim. And it was long before life jackets had been commonly required. But I guess the good Lord was watching over us because we lived to tell about it. Now, Bob was required by our mother to go to Sunday school and church and youth group, MYF at Trinity Methodist Church on the corner of Main Street and Milton Avenue in Rahway. Our parents had been married there. Our grandparents had been married there. And our great-grandfather, Alonzo Turner, was one of the stonemasons who actually built the church. Now, going to church didn't really hurt us. Most of the kids did it in those days. In fact, I'd be inclined to say it worked to instill in us good values. Values of honesty, of helping others, of being a good friend. Bob had good friends from church, some of whom he was still in contact with, sending and receiving jokes by email. Summer vacation in Lavalette, always the first week after school got out. Bob had some really miserable sun blisters, but he didn't let it slow him down, and hanging with our Hoffman cousins in Bayhead was lots of fun. Can you tell that the Jersey Shore was a big deal for Bob, both while growing up and later in life when he was able to live there? But his other early love was cars, and I can still picture his first one. I think it was a Ford, and it was black, but it had bright yellow fenders. It looked like a bumblebee, and he was so excited to get that car. Now, our family owned a hardware store in Westfield, and Bob worked there and saved his money. You know, in those days, your parents didn't buy you a car. You worked and you saved and you bought it yourself, and you probably washed it a couple of times in the driveway. And out of his love for cars came all of those trips to Wall Stadium. It was a bug that bit Bob early and continued throughout his life. He worked on cars for a while and then started working at American Steel, growing with responsibility and new experiences over the years. Then there was marriage and fatherhood. Lisa and Bobby came along for Roseanne and Bob while they lived in their first house on Albemarle Street in Rahway. Then the opportunity came to buy the house in Green Brook that our Uncle Dan had built with his own hands for Aunt Ethel. Well, it was originally like moving off into the woods, up on the mountain, because that area hadn't been well developed yet. But it was a great place to raise children. Bob expanded the house, added a swimming pool, and if it hadn't been for the copperheads in the basement, it probably would have been perfect. Oh, maybe that was only one time. Bob made sure that a love for the shore was instilled in both Lisa and Bobby. He was also their little league coach, as his dad had been for Bob. Baseball was probably Bob's favorite sport to play. Our backyard growing up had the neighborhood baseball diamond in it. And when asked, our mother said, "We're raising children, not grass." Living in New England as long as I have, it was especially nice that Lisa's little league team was the Red Sox. Bob loved seeing Bobby play football in high school, as he did subsequently with Brian and Kevin. He was indeed proud of the responsible, funny, and caring people that his children and grandchildren grew into. Of course, we give Bobby's good wife, Peggy, some credit for that too. Years brought changes in life. We shouldn't be surprised that Bob and Pat's wedding reception was on a party boat out of Brielle. And then there was their house, the first one on the Metedeconk River, looking out into the Barnegat Bay. They had a dock which accommodated their boat very nicely. And heading out into the bay or through the inlet to the Atlantic was a great joy, one easily shared with Pat's children and grandchildren. Bob was always a careful boat's captain, and one felt safe in his care. Now, DJ read some verses from Ecclesiastes. I'd like to go a little bit farther in that same chapter, because there are other verses from Ecclesiastes that I think really do speak about Bob. So listen. God has made everything suitable for its time. Moreover, he has put a sense of past and future into their minds, meaning human beings. I know that there is nothing better for them than to be happy and enjoy themselves as long as they live. Moreover, and mind you, this is the Bible speaking, it is God's gift that all should eat and drink and take pleasure in all their toil. Eat and drink and take pleasure in all their toil. Now, there are words that describe Bob Bennekamper. Bob relished a good meal out with Pat and friends. They enjoyed many times in Atlantic City. And I don't know quite how he did it, but Bob often came home from Atlantic City with a few dollars still in his pocket. Bob was a supportive husband during some times of Pat's illness and hospitalization. Of course, when he was busy cooking for himself, there might have been a little too much pork roll or Taylor ham for you more sophisticated folks. Bob was certainly known for having a ready smile. The last I saw that smile was in mid-March. Lorraine and I met Bob and Pat over lunch, a meal, while we were all in Florida. And as last memories go, it's a good one to have. But there's one other I'd like to share with you. It relates to the one and only time I quoted Bob in a sermon. As you know, He went into New York City when the 9/11 attacks happened in order to move some of American Steel's heavy construction equipment to ground zero. And he was there for a couple of days, and we spoke at the end of that horrible week. Bob said, "There is something I want you to tell your congregation, that these attacks caused the opposite of their perpetrators' aim. We are all down here working together. Doesn't matter what our race is, doesn't matter what our religion is, we are all Americans. We pull together, and that's how we come out of this stronger." Sadly, Bob's words needed some repeating yesterday. Rephrased a little bit, those who will attack our democracy, wherever they come from, will not prevail. In the final analysis, Bob represented the kind of man we need many of to keep this old world tilting in the right direction. Men who go to work each day with a mind of doing a better than average job, who treat others fairly and honestly, who strive to have success in their work and make their community a better place. Men who make time for their children and their grandchildren, instilling in them good values as well as a love of life. Men who eat and drink and take pleasure in all their toil. Men who are regular guys. Yes, life is a journey. It is a sacred pilgrimage. And we give thanks to God for Bob's journey, now safely concluded here on earth and relocated into the realm of eternity.
That was quite powerful, Pastor, and I thank you for your profound words. I've seen many clergy speak about their family, and it's always interesting to me, as I have always respected clergy, even though they tell me not to. They have the same faith we do. They just chose to express it on a more daily basis. But thank you, because you truly honored your brother. As I was thinking about the Jersey Shore, I found a quote by, of course, the ultimate Jersey Shore boy, Bruce Springsteen, right? "Anyone who's grown up or lived on the Jersey Shore knows the place is unique." And I can't help but chuckle, because Rahway obviously is kind of close to the Jersey Shore. It's at the gateway as you start to go down the parkway. But for a Rahway kid to fall in love with that beautiful blue water and the smell that just comes from the Jersey Shore in a good way, that just invigorates your soul, and I see a lot of you shaking your heads. I do want to share a couple of important words from some people who knew Bob and Pat very well. If you look off to my left here, Clean Ocean Action. Couple people decided one day they had to do something, right? Couple people decided that something was wrong and they needed to help fix a problem. What was that problem? Us. Us not taking care of the beautiful world that God has given us. Specifically, our waters, which give life to all that we are, and our beaches, which provide a lot of love and a lot of fun. So Bob and Pat decided they needed to do something about it. They got involved, and you'll see as if you're not here, don't worry, Pat will send you them. We made some pretty cool bookmarks, and on the back, I gave a plug to Clean Ocean Action, making waves to save our seas, with their web address, because I know how important it was to Bob and how much he would rather me stand up here, and instead of speaking about him, he would want us to speak, and a lot of you are shaking your heads because you know, he would want us to speak about Clean Ocean Action. Well, Pat, Clean Ocean Action has some things they want to say to you, and more importantly to Bob. They have given us this wonderful proclamation, which I am honored and humbled to read And I would like to thank the entire board for their words. So I am honored to read this on behalf of Clean Ocean Action. So, let me get my glasses. I'm getting old. On behalf of Clean Ocean Action's trustees and staff, we share our deepest sympathies and sorrow with Pat and family. The loss is unfathomable. Bob was a remarkable person. To Clean Ocean Action, known as COA, Bob was true blue, the salt of the earth, and a trusted compass in rough seas. Moreover, owing to Bob's impressive career in serious construction, he knew that for anything to last, the structure must be strong, straight, and true. Thanks to Bob's wisdom, character, passion, and wit, he has helped shape and build Clean Ocean Action into a successful and thriving organization. With Pat by his side, he knew that education is the foundation, and the word foundation is bolded, from which to inspire people to care for and mobilize to protect the ocean. For over 30 years, they took on one of the most challenging yet pivotal roles, informing, educating, and motivating people to action. While this may be seen today as old school, it is still the most powerful way to change the world. It is tried and true advocacy, but it is very hard work. No cell phones, no texting, no clicks, just one-on-one conversations with citizens to convince them to support the ocean. Together, they clock thousands of hours at festivals, fairs, concerts, and events, talking with and inspiring thousands of people to answer the call and sign petitions, attend rallies, testify at hearings, or even changing their own polluting habits. Bob also contributed significantly to campaigns and strategies. He researched issues in depth, and with his keen knowledge and political savvy, Bob provided persuasive facts and evidence to oppose harmful proposals. At public hearings, with hundreds of people, Bob would firmly present his compelling evidence with steely eyes to the callous bureaucrats. I love that line, by the way. Thank you for writing that. I'm going to read that again. At public hearings with hundreds of thousands of people, Bob would firmly present his compelling evidence with steely eyes to the callous bureaucrats. Roars of applause would follow. Together, this proof and the vast public support empowered COA to successfully end ocean dumping, stop offshore oil and gas drilling, block offshore liquefied natural gas facilities, reduce plastic pollution, and so much more. These achievements are remarkable and unique in the nation and in the world. They were only possible because of the power of people, thanks to leaders like Bob. Bob and Pat also helped to raise funds with creative ideas and were committed to expanding COA into South Jersey. Truly a dynamic duo. They wanted to improve the ocean for their children and their grandchildren. And that they did. Indeed, for us here at COA, Pat and Bob Bennekamper, in quotation marks, was one name always said together. So much so, I'm chuckling because I read this before, obviously, that in 2002, they were invited to join the COA Board of Trustees as our first ever 2-for-1 special. They served together but shared just one vote. As far as we know, true to their style, they always agreed and a vote was never split. Pat, true?
True.
True, everybody. She's shaking her head, yes. As board members, they supported and guided the expansion of COA. They guided and inspired the Education Committee with their on-the-ground insights on capturing people's attention and motivating citizens. With Bob's extensive construction and building knowledge, he was a beacon on COA's headquarters search committee. It took years, but at long last, a perfect location was found in Long Branch, complete with an ocean view. To firmly secure a sound future for COA, Bob focused on building and strengthening the heart of COA, the Board of Trustees. Thanks to his steadfast leadership, he focused on core values and principles for new board members: passion, effort, and honesty. Of course, Bob was all of these and so much more. In sum, Bob wielded a strong base and framework to support and empower COA as it continues its legacy of protecting the ocean. He made a profound difference. The world is healthier, the ocean is cleaner for all to enjoy, including his family. Bob ensured that COA can weather the storm to battle on. That's quite a splash, which will have ripple effects for decades to come. Bob, you have our endless waves of gratitude for your tireless, inspirational support. A true blue friend, an ocean defender, you will always be with us. Sincerely, trustees, Tom Fagan, President, Rowley Montcalvo, Treasurer, Patsy Guttenplan, Acting Secretary, Jeff Martin, and Jim Lovegren. And from all the staff, Cindy Zipf, Executive Director, Mary Beth Thompson, the COO, and Carrie Martin, Advocacy Campaign Manager. And also, to formally honor Bob, the Board of Trustees and staff of Clean Ocean Action will host a public celebration and memorial this summer 2021 at the headquarters he helped to establish. And for all of you here and for all of you watching and speaking with Cindy, who's been absolutely wonderful, she loves you guys a lot from the heart. That information will be posted on our website on Bob's permanent page once it's known, and will be kind of rebroadcast and pushed out to all the followers. And we encourage and hope to see you all down the shore at the place Bob loves so much, where we can all hug at that point pretty soon. So I was a little worried because I've heard so much about Aunt Diane. I was really worried about going after her. So maybe I willed it in my own mind. I don't know. But I read this from Cindy. I also got worried. I said, I'm going to wedge myself in between these two powerful speeches. This is crazy. But their love and their passion that came through with Diane, who we're going to bring back in a moment, but also through the COA, that's got to tell you who Bob was, is, and always will be. He's dancing in our hearts right now. And I think gave us all a little pause as we go back out into the world, trying to be a little bit more like the average Bob. Not bad. I do have to tell you that both Lisas are under the weather, otherwise they would be here tonight. And I do have permission to tell this, and I thought if it got heavy for a moment, this would be a good interlude. And I do have permission, Bobby, from your sister Lisa, to tell this story. So don't get up and knock me down, all right? Trying to be the protecting brother. But it involves, and Diane, you spoke about when he was the coach. And he was the coach of Lisa as well, who played with the boys. Well, Bob being the coach and trying to protect his young male ball players did what any good coach would do. He lined them all up and started walking down, giving them all cups, not to drink water out of. You got where the cups? Okay. For those of you in the world, jock straps. And he got to his daughter. And being a good dad, not wanting to make her feel like she wasn't one of the boys, well, here you go anyway, and kept on going. So if that doesn't tell you a little bit about a dad trying to make his little girl feel a part of everything, I don't know what does. I'm still laughing. You see that picture off to the right? I will bring it for those of you who are not in view of the camera, and I want to take the moment to do that. Get out of the light there. It's a picture of a guy and a gal. A gal with blonde hair in this picture. Little joke. Pat has had many different hair colors over the years, depending on which color Bob liked the most. But as they said, you didn't say Bob Bennekamper without saying Pat. I wanted to share, before we hear from Pat, some words that meant a lot to them both. All Time High by Rita Coolidge. Diane mentioned that party boat. This was the song that they danced to. But then we're two of a kind. We move as one. We're an all-time high. We'll change all that's gone before, doing so much more than falling in love on an all-time high. We'll take on the world and win. So hold on tight, let the flight begin. I'm in so strong and so deep, and so are you. In my time I've said these words before, but now I realize my heart was telling me, for they're always true, we're on an all-time high. So hold on tight and let the flight begin. And Pat, as I've said the last couple days to you, the flight hasn't crashed. The flight hasn't landed. The flight goes on. You just have to let your heart let it. So if you'd like to come up and share some words, feel free. And you can take your mask down.
I don't speak well with it on anyway.
None of us do.
I just wanted to say how much I am going to miss my soulmate. And it was an all-time high that we lived together. And I'm sorry to see it all end, and I'm sorry that the next generation of grandkids aren't going to know him. And he won't be able to teach them. But it has been an all-time high, and I thank him so much.
Thank you, Pat. We hear from Mark Twain, and you talk about the next generation. They'll learn. Oh, they will learn. Not directly, but they will learn. And I can't help but think that these words from Mark Twain would be a little bit of what Grampies would tell him. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you did not do than by the things that you have done. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. As I promised before, we'd have an opportunity for those who are present to share something that's on their heart. If you do wish to share, I would ask that when you come forward, just lower your mask. Let everybody know who you are, how you're related, a friend, a family member, and just speak at your normal volume and everybody will be able to hear. Who would like to go first? I know it's hard. No pressure. I see a couple people who are inching to get up. That's okay. I would ask you, though, that you all have the memories. You all have the stories. And Pat spoke about that next generation. I would love for you all to write down the Bob-isms, the Bob stories. You all have them, no question about it. I do realize some are G-rated, some are PG-rated, and I'm sure they go up the line exponentially. I would love for you all at some point to write down some of those memories. And at the end of that particular memory, write why it's so important to you. Why that particular moment has struck you to the point that you felt the need to make sure that it was written down, put in an envelope, and gotten to Pat so that eventually she can distribute that and make a little binder for the next generations. As that quote from Mark Twain said, it's not the things you didn't do. We need to remember that we all live our lives different. Not right or wrong, but different. Some of us like hiking the mountains. Others like the shore. But what Diane spoke so eloquently about, and spoke about in that Ecclesiastes passage, is what made Bob special. Not the fact that he loved the ocean. Same could be said for me. I love the mountains. Actually, I love the ocean. I'm a water boy too. But it's the fact that Bob did what he did with a genuine compassion grounded in reality. Think about that. A genuine compassion grounded in reality.
O thou who pervades the heights and the depths, the wind and the waves, imprint on us your gracious blessing. Carry us over the seas of life. Bless now our boat and those within. Bless our anchor and our oars, our mainsail and our mast. And when the storms come, may we stand at the helm with your peace as our strength and your presence as our guide. And when the sun sets and our journey is done, grant us a safe anchorage, grateful hearts, and abundant love. Amen. you.